Hello. Today is Tuesday, day 2 of my shenanigans. I'm realizing that I didn't give you an update on what happened last night. I stayed in the library until 5 because I didn't have money to Uber back home. What did I end up learning? Let me show you. I did this week's course on audio engineering, making sure that I understand the basics of audio fundamentals in music production and radio station production. So that was learning objective 2 for my first syllabus. And then I started the first objective of my first week of my work for the course. I'm a little fried, but also I don't think I'm fried. In a way, if you think about it, I feel, what's this? I feel unmasked and I feel real. I just feel a little low because I didn't really take my medication and I didn't eat well. Also, I have to go back to work, which is getting me a little. But I'm fine. I don't think it's gonna be too bad. But going back to the lesson that we learned, I learned last night that audio basically is energy, sound is energy, and we use digital audio interfaces to capture it. Oh no.
Hi everybody and welcome to this episode on track automation in Logic Pro. In today's episode you'll learn all about how to work with automation and delete
Hello. That's the next lesson. Then we have systems that gather that shit. So the first thing that you need to understand is that you need to gather it or get it in a reasonable amount of wavelength space. Because if you capture too much of it, it could result in the wavelength being permanently damaged, which is called clipping, which is so cool. And we're gonna get into wavelength mathematics a little later. Most important thing is you have to get the sound in at the right amount of decibels. Remember, decibels is a ratio, not necessarily a unit, but it's more so a comparison of output with the initial wave sample entered, or captured. And so if you have 0 decibels, that is the ceiling. Once you go over that, it's when things happen, funky things happen. And then -6 decibels is around the safest place to keep audio, especially radio audio. One thing you have to remember about radio audio is that it has to be very intimate, it has to be very dry. Not much space to do some effects. We can't all be 40 and use great ambience, type and reverb on radio, because that's when we start sounding really far and weird and spooky. Now, after you collect it, you have to then go into managing what frequencies come out. So now we're handling cleanup on what we've collected in loudness, not necessarily loudness. I don't really understand that. I am translating it into loudness and what you hear, but I will decode this. Okay, because it is loudness. Then you clean up how everything sounds, okay? So there's specific frequencies that don't need to be heard, okay? And the voice kind of comes in from 20 and goes up to like 10, I think. What is it? 8. The voice goes from 100 to 8. But we hear, where do we hear? What do we hear? I can't hear. Y'all. Yeah, we hear 20 and goes to 20K. That's why rates. But that's a different thing that like sample rate collection or like, not collection, but anyway. Not anyway. I will get there and I will explain it. But here, human hearing is that what we hear, and we have to make sure that we boost presence. Most voices sit around 3 to 5K hertz. So, don't want it to sound too far. You want it to be up and personal. When I'm talking to you in your car, I want you to hear me whisper in your ear. Now, then you go to compression. Everything has to be equal. The lows and the highs have to be equal. Compression basically makes what is over the limit, makes it softer. You can choose how fast or slow you want that forceful softness to come in. And I don't actually know about the lows. The lows are boosted, but that doesn't say anything there. No, it just compresses the highs, baby. They ain't telling me about no lows here. You have ratios, your overall input compared to your overall output. So for every loud input, it goes down 1. Now, for every unit measured, or not even unit, guys, it is actually a unit. Ratios in compression is units. Decibels are measured as not ratios, but exponentials, like logarithmic, multiplications. I'm confusing the shit out of y'all. And then we go to just creating space. You have to make artificial space once you clear that bad boy. That's why it's also quite important that you get clear sound. Because if there's space already in the sound that you collect, it warps everything and fucks up how you edit everything. So everything has to be clean and close so that you can add the fakeness. These are the preservatives. These are where we create magic. And then we move on to... So remember, reverb works with... Wet is just processed sound. Dry is just original sound, okay? Just remember that. The sound's been processed. Then controlled communication. That is the idea when you think about radio. It's forced intimacy. Think of it as someone trying to trauma bond with you. The radio is all about being in your face, having authority, having emotional talks, building trust, and also clarity. You thinking about someone that wants to like trauma bond with you and maybe like love bomb your ass? Those are the 4 characteristics that radio audio needs to mimic to be good. I really enjoyed learning yesterday's section. Where it got me was when we started talking how decibels was not a unit. Decibels was a multiple or a ratio. And I was like, what the fuck are y'all saying? Because what the fuck were they saying? But I'll get it. I just need someone to explain it to me. Then we have sound. We broke down what sound was. And then sound is vibrations moving through a medium. It's usually air. Right now you can hear me because and this is so cool, guys. Oh my gosh, we're catching vibes. Think of it. We're catching vibes. We're catching vibes. So sound moving through medium, okay? Then what does the sound need to do? Sound has like 4 properties that it needs to like be warped by to make sure that we can give you good audio. So when we break it down, you need to understand that sound needs to be mixed, synthesized, recorded, and arranged. So to do that, we need pure sound. Especially as listeners, we improve with our sound capturing tools. Not too many people like the impurities that move through, unless you want that. Unless that's the vibe you're going for. Then we have 4 properties of sound, okay? First is the frequency. So that is the amount of wavelengths that move from one point to another per second, okay? So the higher the frequency, the faster the wavelengths. The lower the frequency, the slower and the bigger the wavelengths are. The bigger the wavelengths are, they move. And that's why bass can move through walls, babes. That's why in the club, you can feel it. And that's why you can feel it like it goes through your soul. Now, wavelengths, amplitude is loudness, okay? So we amp that shit up. Amp, okay? Then we have wavelengths. That is determining how high or how low the frequency is. Actually, this is the most trash ass like West Indian accent in the world. So it's the distance between 2 peaks or 2 troughs, usually a complete cycle. Amplitude, loudness, frequency, sound. Oh, did you know? I'm gonna stop looking at the notes. Did you know that semitones are measured at 2 to the power 1/12? So frequency increases every 2 to the power 1/12. Don't know what the fuck that means, but that's great to know, right? I know. Now, drunk. Then we move on to wavelength. No, phase. This is the cycle. Phase is generally just the cycle, bro. And then it also how it disturbs and it also builds on one another. So that's all you have to understand about this shit. Then also you have wave shapes. So if you have a sine, that's like a pure sound, okay? Then if you have a square, that makes woody and boxy sounds. It's hollow. Sorry, woody and hollow. Woody and hollow. Then if you have a triangle, it's soft and rounded. These are more for your synths, my God. More for your synths. More for your synths. Let me move to this thing. This is when it got built, bro. This is when it got tape. This is when the notes got tape. And I was like, good golly, what am I learning? Yes. I think I took a twist now. No, the plugins wasn't even the most difficult part of this shit, bro. It wasn't. It was when decibels came in and they're busy telling me that it is a multiple. It is an exponential of the original. When you crank that shit up, exponential. But then you measure it in logarithmic scale or what? Logarithmic ratio units. You measure it in logarithmic ratio units because if you measure it linearly, because sound is such a wide range, you cannot plot that shit down in numbers. You need to use logarithmic ratio units. Ratio is multiples. Hey. Yeah. So, Tommy, I need you to understand, né? I need you to understand that we also took note of how sound travels and what affects good sound capturing. Good sound capturing was brought to us by Ohm's law. Okay, so now it's when electricity and signals are captured. So it is velocity equals to the current I multiplied the resistance. The resistance, we think about it in water terms, baby girl. A current is like the speed at which a water flows. Okay? Resistance is the medium or the channel it takes to flow. If it is big, a lot of it can flow. If it is small, a little bit of it can flow. Now that determines voltage. Voltage, that's also determined by, power is RV. So now, your resistance is determined by the wires, the distance of the wires, the plugins and the amps and the things that we're using, and then also our microphones. So that makes distance increase, but then also processing and for the electricity to move through. I love it. I love how we are doing this. We're doing this together, guys. We are learning. Love it. I need to wrap this up. This is going on for way too long. Now we move on, right? Let me show you the notes. Then we move on to Nyquist theory, my niggers. So, also, that's digital audio, baby girl. It's the how we accurately capture. That's what I was busy telling you. We capture double what we intend to capture. So what we hear, it makes sense. Because why does it make sense to me? If we have constructive, Yazzie, what's this thing? Constructive, when the wavelengths come together. Constructive interference. You have aliasing. I don't know why aliasing exists, but we just have it, okay? We have aliasing, where higher frequencies fall into the octave below lower frequencies. Digital distortion, where high frequencies fall back into low ones. Doesn't even need to be an octave. It doesn't state that it's an octave. I'm assuming that it does. Because if it sounds clear and constructive interference is the only one that boosts volume but still makes it sound clear. Maybe. Does it? You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. At the end of the day, we all learning together. So, if the human hearing is 20 kilohertz, baby girl, your minimum sampling rate must be 40 kilohertz. You must have seen it when your projects ask you to open up. They're like, yo, you want to do 44.1 or 48? Mine also offers 48. I don't know why. But sometimes it says when I upload projects or like sounds onto my DAW, it says, do you want to change it to the project or do you want to keep it as normal? Now I know to put it to the project. Now, we move on. Babes, if the sampling is too low, an aliasing occurs. I wonder if aliasing just occurs in general and we just accommodating for the aliasing that does occur. Because we're smart like that. We think ahead. Guys, everybody thinks music is just this thing where we just stumble in and we do drugs and we just act like delinquents and we just say uncalled lines like I wish my parents were less mean to me. But we're smart. We're like actually smart. We have dreams. We're intellects. We actually do things. We're doing physics. So, analog to digital conversion. This, last time I ever did this, ADC, was at 17. I didn't understand what the hell they were talking about, but now I kind of get it. Remember, your microphone collects vibes, and that turns into electrical signals. So ADC converts to numbers, baby girl. Now, the more samples per second, the smoother the waveform. Means you're collecting clearer rates. Don't you just love it? We have the power to learn anything. I think I'm gonna cut this one short, because yeah. Then I went on to learning like the different types of plugins that there are and what the plugins do. It's just mathematical conversations and stuff like that. How do plugins work? Plugins kind of process sound unless the plugin is used to create sound from waveforms, like create sound from scratch from different waves. Then that plugin is an instrument, and you can like make your own plugins. That's, I think, next week. Unless it's not next week, because I plan on pushing and chowing more content today. I'm feeling really good about this. I'm feeling really, really good about this. I think I understand logarithmic ratios and the way that I explained it to you. It's a decibel formula, guys. It's a ratio, it's a multiple, exponential. Throwing words out at you, okay? You know what to do with it. Good girl. Thank you so much for staying with week 1's lesson. I don't feel fully confident that I've grasped everything that I do need to, so I'm gonna like chow it again and iron out what I'm not sure about. But I clocked in about 1 hour 45 minutes, which means I need to do 2 hours 3 minutes, 2 hours 3 hours 30 minutes. 3 hours 30 minutes practical work. Love you guys.